Okay, welcome back to the exciting book of Genesis. Hallelujah, moving right along. Today we are in chapter 46, and you thought it would never end. Huh? Yes, Genesis is a very long book, but we are in chapter 46 today. So that being said, let's jump right in. Let's have my first reader read Genesis 46, 1 through 5, please.
And Israel took his journey with all that he had, and came to Beersheba, and offered sacrifices unto the Elohim of his father Yitzhak. And Elohim spake unto Israel in the visions of the night, and said, Jacob, Jacob. And he said, Here am I. And he said, I am Elohim, the Elohim of thy father. Fear not to go down into Mitzrayim, for I will there make of thee a great nation. I will go down with thee into Mitzrayim, and I will also surely bring thee up again. And Joseph shall put his hand upon thine eyes. And Jacob rose up from Beersheba, and the sons of Israel carried Jacob their father, and their little ones, and their wives, in the wagons which Pharaoh had sent to carry them.
Hallelujah. And just as a precursor for those who aren't familiar with my teaching, um, we like to look at the scriptures for the historical account, but also for the spiritual account that speaks to us now today, that we might know and understand how the word applies to us today and how it can be applied to our lives today. Amen.
Amen.
For the word is just as our Messiah, who is the word, the same yesterday, today, and forevermore, and also that which was, what is, and which is to come. And so it teaches. It teaches concerning that which was, that which is, and that which is to come. And so we not only like to look at what was, but we also like to look at what is and is to come as well. And that being said, here in Genesis 46, we see that Israel took journey with all he had and came to Beersheba. Beersheba in Hebrew, it means oath, the well of the oath. And so it speaks to, the words of an oath. And it tells us that, there, that Elohim spoke unto Israel in the visions of the night. And he told him not to fear going down into Mitzrayim, or Egypt. Now, Egypt means, devil's straits, which speaks to like devil trouble, to be in straits is, to be in an oppressing place, well, times that by two, so that's what Egypt is double straits. And spiritually it speaks to Jerusalem, and it says, for I will there make of thee a great nation. I will go down with thee into Mizraim, and I will also surely bring thee up again. And Joseph shall put his hand upon thine eyes. And it says, and Joseph shall put his hand upon thine eyes. Now, Joseph was getting, Yaakov was getting pretty old, so, maybe that Joseph was going to heal his eyes. Nah, that's not what that means. It's actually, it actually speaks, he's actually telling Joseph that he's going to die in Mitzrayim. And that's important to understand spiritually for us, seeing that we're also a type of Israel. We're also a type of people that's wrestling with good and evil, trying to prevail by holding on to Elohim, which is good, right?
Yes.
And so we too, have to go down into devil's straits and wait for Yah to bring us up again. And, many of us also, Joseph will put his hand upon our eyes, saying that Joseph is a type of the Messiah. We would die in the Messiah. And that's exactly where we want to die. We want to die in the will of the Messiah. Amen. And it speaks in verse 5 of the wagons in which Pharaoh had sent to carry him. Now, to see the spiritual picture here, you have to consider, that when the Hebrews, when they look at something, they see the function. When us Westerners, when we look at things, we see the likeness, you know, and so we think of a wagon, we start thinking of things that's like a wagon, you know, and they, you know, they look at a wagon and they see, you know, things that function like a wagon, you know, such as this word here, which really speaks to the revolving, you know, of the wheels of the wagon, you know, and Pharaoh, whose name, which Pharaoh means great house, and you know, I didn't put this here because we went over this several times throughout this chapter, you know, and spiritually depicts the house of Elohim. So here it is, we see, you know, Israel being taken into Jerusalem to the house of Elohim, you know, that in the wagons that Pharaoh has sent to carry him. Now, when we apply this spiritually, we can see that, you know, there's also something that revolves that's meant to carry us, you know, that we're meant to, that carry us round and round and round, you know, and that's Yah's Moedim, you know, it constantly goes round and round, and those of us who adhere to it, you know, go around with it, amen? You know. Let me have my next reader read verses 6 through 9.
And they took their cattle and their goods, which they had gotten in the land of Canaan, and came into Egypt, Jacob and all his seed with him, his sons and his sons' sons with him, his daughters and his sons' daughters, and all his seed brought he with him into Egypt. And these are the names of the children of Israel, which came into Egypt: Jacob and his sons, Reuben, Jacob's firstborn, and the sons of Reuben, Hanok and Phalu and Hezron and Carmi. And the sons of Simeon, Jemuel and Jamin and Ohad and Jason and Zohar and Shaul, the son of a Canaanitish woman.
Hallelujah. Thank you. And so here it is, we see, you know, who was going into Mitzrayim with Yaakov. And, you know, just to define some of these names, you know, Reuben speaks to, means behold a son, and then we have Hanok, which means initiated, narrow, or dedicated. Phalu, distinguished. Hezron, courtyard, surrounded by a wall. Carmi, my vineyard. Simeon, hearing. Yemuel, day of El. Yamin, the right hand. Ohad, united. Yakin, he will establish. Zohar, whiteness. Then we have verses 46, 11 through 13. It says, and the sons of Levi, Gershon, Kohath, and Merari, and the sons of Yahuda, Er, and Onan, and Shelah, and Pharez, and Zerah. But Er and Onan died in the land of Canaan, and the sons of Pharez were Hezron and Hamul. And the sons of Yissachar, Tola, and Fufa, and Yo, and Shimron. Okay, and we have Levi, meaning attached or joined to Gershon, speaking to a refugee or an exile. Kohath, assembly. Merari, bitter. Yahuda, praiser of Yah. Er, awake or watchful. Onan, strong. Shelah, request. Pharez, a break or breaking out or breaking away. Hezron, courtyard or enclosed. Yissachar, pardon, payment or reward. Tola, crimson worm. Fufa, a blast that blows away. Yob, a holler, one that's crying out. Shimron, something preserved or guarded. Okay, verses 14 through 16. My next reading, please.
And the sons of Zebulun, Shered, Elam, Yaaleel. These be the sons of Leah, which he bare unto Yaakov in Padan-aram, with his daughter Dinah. And all the souls of his sons and his daughters were 33. And the sons of Gad, Ziphion, and Haggai, Shunai, and Esbon, Eri, Erotai, and Irolai.
Hallelujah. Okay, so we have Zebulun, meaning habitation. Zered, to tremble or fear. Elon, oak, grove, or mighty. Yaleel, waiting on Elohim. Leah, weary. Dinah, judge. We have the number 33 that speaks to promise. We have God, meaning a troop or good fortune. We have Ziphion, meaning to look out. Hagi, festive or my feast. And then we have verses 17 through 19, which says, then the sons of Asher, Yimnah and Yeshua and Isui and Beriah and Sarah, their sister, and the sons of Beriah, Heber and Malchiel. And these are the sons of Zilpah, whom Laban gave to Leah, his daughter, and these she bare unto Jacob, even 16 souls. The sons of Rachel, Jacob's wife, Joseph and Benjamin. And we have Asher, meaning happy, Yimnah, meaning prosperity, Ishua, meaning he will equalize, Yesui, he will justify me, Beriah, in evil or in envy, Heber, company or enchantment, Malchiel, my king is El. We have Zilpah, which speaks to a trickling, Laban, whiteness, Leah, weary, 16 speaks to love, Rachel, you, Joseph, he will add, Benjamin, son of my right hand. Verses 20 and 21, my next reader, please.
And unto Joseph in the land of Egypt were born Manasseh and Ephraim, which Asenath, the daughter of Potiphera, priest of On, bare unto him. And the sons of Benjamin were Bela and Becher, and Ashbel, Gera, and Naaman, Ehi, and Rosh, Muppin, and Humpin, and Ard.
Hallelujah. All right, we have Joseph, meaning he will add, Manasseh, forgotten, Ephraim, doubly fruitful, Asenath, worship of me for cow of heaven, or opener of the good pathways, or water goddess, Potiphera, that scatters abroad, to whom Ra has given, devoted to Ra, on the house of Ra, also meaning strength. We have Benjamin, son of the right hand, Bela, destruction, Becher, young, or firstborn, or young camel, Gera, speaking to a grade, or cud, or sojourning, Ashbel, a man in El, or a man of Baal, or fire in Baal, or I will make a path. Not Naaman, pleasantness, Aki, my brother, Rosh, head or chief, Kupim, coverings, Mupim, shakings or serpent, Ard, I shall subdue. Verses 22 through 25 goes on to say, these are the sons of Rachel, which were born to Jacob. All the souls were 14. And the sons of Dan, Hushim, and the sons of Naphtali, Yaziel, and Guni, and Yazer, and Shalem. These are the sons of Bilhah, which Laban gave unto Rachel, his daughter, and she bare these unto Jacob. All the souls were 7. And we have Rachel, meaning you, Yaakov, supplanter, 14, speaking to salvation, Dan, judge, Hushim, who makes haste, Naphtali, my wrestlings, Yaziel, El divides, Guni, protected, Shalem, repaid or recompense, Bilhah, meaning timid or troubled, Laban, whiteness, Rachel, you, 7, speaking to heavenly and earthly perfection. Okay, now my next reader read verses 26 through 34, please.
All the souls that came with Jacob into Egypt, which came out of his loins, besides Jacob's sons' wives, all the souls were 66. And the sons of Joseph, which were born him in Egypt, were 2 souls. All the souls of the house of Jacob, which came into Egypt, were 70. And he sent Judah before him unto Joseph, to direct his face unto Goshen. And they came into the land of Goshen. And Joseph made ready his chariot, and went up to meet Israel, his father to Goshen, and presented himself unto him, and he fell on his neck, and wept on his neck a good while. And Israel said unto Joseph, Now let me die, since I have seen thy face, because thou art yet alive. And Joseph said unto his brethren and unto his father's house, I will go up and show Pharaoh, and say unto him, My brethren and my father's house, which were in the land of Canaan, are come unto me. And the men are shepherds, for their trade hath been to feed cattle. And they have brought their flocks and their herds, and all that they have. And it shall come to pass, when Pharaoh shall call you, and shall say, What is your occupation? And ye shall say, Thy servant's trade hath been about cattle from our youth even until now, both we and also our fathers, that ye may dwell in the land of Goshen. For every shepherd is an abomination unto the Egyptians.
Hallelujah. Okay, so here it is. We have the account of all the souls that came with Yaakov in the Mitzrayim. You know, there was 66, you know, that came with him. 66 just so happened to be the number that represents idol worship, in case you were wondering. You know, now it tells us that, and the sons of Joseph, which were born him in Mitzrayim, were 2 souls, and the souls of the house of Yaakov, which came into Mitzrayim, were 70. Okay, so it was 70 altogether. 70 is a number that represents a multitude, and surely they would be a multitude when they come out. Amen.
Amen.
You know, and even as Yah said what he would do when he was sending them in there, he said, you know, I'm sending you in there, but I'm gonna bring you out, sending you in there to multiply you, and I'm gonna bring you out a multitude, and surely he would. You know, now it's revelatory that he sent Yahudah before him to Joseph to direct his face unto Goshen. You know, and so here it is, spiritually speaking, we see the praiser of Yah being sent, you know, before Yisrael unto Joseph, the suffering servant, you know, to direct his face unto Goshen. Now, anybody remember what Goshen meant? Yeah, drawing near. You know, so here it is, we see a spiritual picture of Israel coming into Jerusalem, you know, and so this is a parallel of even of, you know, Israel coming into New Jerusalem, you know, and he sends Yahudah, the praiser of Yah, before him unto Joseph, you know, and to direct his face unto Goshen. You know, and so this is an awesome picture of the praiser of Yah, you know, going before Israel to direct him into drawing near unto Yah. So if you want to know how to get into Goshen, when you want to know how to draw near to the Most High, it starts with sending the praiser within you first. You know, so you know that's where you start. You know, start with praising him. You know, and once we start with praising him, then that'll direct us towards drawing near.
Yes.
Okay, it goes on in verse 29, say, Joseph made ready his chariot and went up to meet Israel, his father, to Goshen, and presented himself unto him. And, you know, once seeing him, Israel said unto Joseph, Now let me die, since I have seen thy face, because thou art yet alive. You know, and, you know, one day we're going to see Yahshua's face again, too. You know, and just as Israel, you know, was saying, now let me die, you know, we're all going to see his face when we die. Amen. You know, and it says that in verse 32 that the men are shepherds. You know, well, Joseph was instructing his brethren in verse 31, and he was saying unto his father's house, I will go up and show Pharaoh, and say unto him, My brethren and my father's house, which are in the land of Canaan, are come unto me. And the men are shepherds, for their trade have been to feed cattle. You know, now here it is, Joseph was using wisdom, because he understood that the Egyptians, you know, they didn't particularly care for shepherds. You know, so they wanted them away from them, and the best land was Goshen, you know, for shepherds, because that's where the green pastures were. You know, and so he's instructing his brethren that you go and you make sure you tell them that you're shepherds. You know, and not only that you're shepherds, you know, but that's been our trade, you know, but also our fathers. You know, we're from a whole line of shepherds. You know, that ye may dwell in the land of Goshen, because he wanted them in the land of Goshen.
Yes.
And trust me, when you go, when you're trying to walk this thing out, you want to be in the land of Goshen.
Yes.
You know, even though we're in a type of Mitzrayim now, we're in a type of Devil Straits. You know, whereas when you walk this thing out accurately, you'll find yourself in Devil Straits, even in a type of Mitzrayim or Egypt. You know, but you should be dwelling in Goshen. You know, Goshen meaning drawing near. You should be dwelling in a place where you're drawing near to Elohim all the time. Amen. You know, you should be dwelling there and having there, residing there, meaning not leaving. You know, you're always to be drawing near to the Most High. Amen.
Amen.
You know, and you know, as long as the Egyptians see that we're shepherds, you know, they're gonna stay away from us. You know, so that's what we want to do. We want to be shepherds. You know, and shepherds, you know, they make their living off of the flock. You know, unlike hunters, you know, such as our brother Edom, you know, who was a hunter. You know, he makes his living off of killing, ensnaring, deceiving, trapping. You know, but not us. You know, we make our living off of the flock that we care and nurture. You know, that in turn gives us their milk and their wool and their meat. You know, so quite a big difference. You know, now we have a bonus round today. We're going to continue on into Genesis 47. Hallelujah. You know, so we're going to jump right in. Genesis 47, 1 through 8. My next reader, please.
Then Yosef came into Pharaoh and said, My father and my brethren and their flocks and their herds and all that they have are come out of the land of Canaan, and behold, they're in Goshen. And he took some of his brethren, even 5 men, presented them unto Pharaoh. And Pharaoh said unto his brethren, What is your occupation? And they said unto Pharaoh, Thy servants are shepherds, both we and also our fathers. They said moreover unto Pharaoh, For to sojourn in the land we are come. For thy servants have no pasture for their flocks, for the famine is sore in the land of Canaan. Now therefore we pray thee, let thy servants dwell in the land of Goshen. And Pharaoh spoke to Yosef, saying, Thy father and thy brethren are come unto thee. The land of Mitzrayim is before thee. In the best of the land make thy father and thy brethren dwell. In the land of Goshen let them dwell. And if thou knowest any men of activity among them, then make them rulers over my cattle. And Yosef brought in Yaakov his father and set him before Pharaoh. And Yaakov blessed Pharaoh. And Pharaoh said unto Yaakov, How old art thou?
Okay, so here it is in verse 2. Verse 1, we see that, you know, just what Joseph said was going to happen is happening. Pharaoh, he's bringing them before Pharaoh, and he takes 5 of his brethren and present them unto Pharaoh. Number 5, speaking of grace. So we see a spiritual picture of grace coming into the house of Elohim, the great house, which Pharaoh means. You know, and they're telling them how they are in fact shepherds, and just as Joseph instructed, and just as he thought, you know, he tells them, yeah, you know, the land of Egypt is before you, in the best of the land make thy father and brethren to dwell. You know, hallelujah. You know, Yah reserves the best for us. Amen.
Yes,
You know, in the land of Goshen, let them dwell. And remember, always remember, Goshen speaks to drawing near, and that's where we want to be dwelling. You know, where we're always ever drawing near to the Most High. Now, verse 9 goes on to say, And Yaakov said unto Pharaoh, The days of the years of my pilgrimage are 130 years. Few and evil have the days of my years of my life been, and not have attained unto the days of the years of the life of my fathers in the days of their pilgrimage. Okay, Now, considering that Yaakov's days when he met Pharaoh, he was 130 years old, you know, and now when we take that into consideration in conjunction with his father Isaac, you know, which we were told in Genesis 35, verse 28, it says, in the days of Yitzhak, you know, were 104 score years. So we see he did, you know, at this point he had not, you know, attained unto the days of his father, Yitzhak, nor Abraham, who lived to be 175, you know, and sure enough, he will not make it, you know. But with this in mind, let us consider that Yaakov was 60 years old when the twins were born, when Yaakov and Esau was born, you know. Yaakov, hold on, I worded something wrong there, didn't I? It's actually Yitzhak was 60 years old when the twins were born. You know, so thereby making Yitzhak 60 years older than Yaakov. Okay, so we have in Genesis 25:26 says that after that came out his brother, and his hand took hold on Esau's heel, and his name was called Yaakov, and Yitzhak was 80 years old when she bare them. So here it is, we see Yitzhak was 60 years older than Yaakov and Esau, right? Okay, so this means that Yaakov and Esau was 120 years old when their father Yitzhak died, because he was 60 years older, you know, and Yitzhak died at 180, so 180 minus 60 is 120, you know. So now this would have been only 17 years prior to Yaakov bringing his family into Mitzrayim, or Egypt, you know, for we see he's 130 years old, you know, to the day that he met Pharaoh, you know. So he was 120 when his father died, you know, so that leaves us with 17 years prior to him bringing his family into Mitzrayim. Additionally, we know that Joseph was 17 when he was sold into Mitzrayim. You know, Genesis 37:2 tells us this. It says, these are the generations of Yaakov. Joseph, being 17 years old, was feeding the flock with his brethren, and the lad was with the sons of Bilhah, with the sons of Zilpah, his father's wives, and Joseph brought unto his father their evil report. You know, and this was just prior to his father sending them to go and check on his brothers, and they would sell them into Mitzrayim. Okay, so Joseph was in Egypt 13 years prior to being exalted. You know, he was 17 when he left, you know, and it wasn't until he was 30 years old when he came into power. You know, in Genesis 41:46, we read, and Joseph was 30 years old when he stood before Pharaoh, king of Mitzrayim, and Joseph went out from the presence of Pharaoh and went throughout all the land of Mitzrayim. Okay, so we see he was 30 years old, so that gives us 13 years, you know, that he was in Mitzrayim before he was exalted to ruler. Now, it's not just happenstance or coincidence that also, in Joseph being a type of Messiah, that we find that the Messiah also came into power when he was 30 years old.
Yes.
You know, so we see this in Luke 3:22 and 23. It says, and Ruach HaKodesh descended in a bodily shape like a dove upon him, and a voice came from heaven which said, thou art my beloved son. Indeed, I am well pleased. And Yahushua himself began to be about 30 years of age, being as supposed the son of Joseph, which was the son of Heli. You know, so we see something very similar here when Joseph was being presented, standing before Pharaoh, you know, in which he was made the ruler of all Mitzrayim except for Pharaoh. You know, this happened when he was 30 years old. And also, we see with the Messiah, when he stood before his father, you know, and was given authority over everything except for his father, we see a parallel right here. And again, he was about 30 years old. So can you see the parallel?
Yeah.
You know, now when he came into power, we know it was behind interpreting the dreams, you know, which was prophetic of what Yah was about to do in the earth. You know, 7 years of famine, 7 years of plenty, followed by 7 years of famine. Amen.
Amen.
Okay, so knowing that he's 30 years old now, right? Now Genesis 41, 53, and 54 tells us, and the 7 years of plenteousness that was in the land of Mizraim were ended, and the 7 years of dearth began to come according as Joseph has said. And the dearth was in all the lands, but in all the land of Mizraim there was bread. You know, and so that gives us 7 years right there, right? And then when he's speaking to his brethren, when he revealed himself to his brethren in chapter 45, 11, he says, and there will I nourish thee, for yet there are 5 years of famine, lest thou and thy household and all thou hast come to poverty. So, you know, knowing that there's actually was 7 years of famine, this had to be the 2nd year into the famine. Everybody still with me? Okay, so that gives us 7 years of plenteousness and 2 years of famine before he hooked back up with his brethren. Okay, so that's a total of 9 years. Amen? So, hereby we've learned that it was another 9 years before Joseph would be reunited with his father. This gives us a total of 22 years that Joseph and his father were separated. You know, yet Isaac had only been dead for 17 years, thereby teaching us that Isaac, which is when we follow along the theme, you know, that we've been going through in Genesis, we equated Isaac with Christianity. You know, Isaac or Christianity died while Joseph was in Mitzrayim, you know, and not prior to, as it appears to the order, in the order of events given in Scripture. When we read in Scripture, we read about the death of Isaac in chapter 35, right? You know, yet here it is in chapter 46, you know, we're revealed the truth. You know, once we're given the age of Yaakov when he goes before Pharaoh. You know, him being 130, we know that Esau was only dead for 17 years. You know, and in fact, Esau or Christianity had only died 5 years earlier, while Joseph, which is a type of the Messiah, was 33 or 34 years old and in power. You know, he had been in power for 3 to 4 years, which just so happens to be around the exact same time the Messiah was in power prior to Yahushua's death. You know, when the Messiah was anointed with the Ruach in the form of a dove, that's when his ministry began. It wouldn't be to 3 to 4 years later that he would go through his passion and be crucified. During that time, he would be in power, raising the dead, healing the sick, so on and so forth. Amen? You know, so again, there's a parallel. You know, in Yochanan 2:13, we read, it says, and the Yahudim Passover was at hand, and Yahushua went up to Jerusalem. You know, so that was one Passover that is recorded that Yahushua kept. You know, and then in Yochanan 6:3 and 4, it says, and Yahushua went up into a mountain, and there he sat with his disciples in the Passover, a feast of the Yahudim was nigh. That's the second Passover that we know he was around for. And then it speaks of a third Passover in Yochanan 13:1, which says, now before the feast of the Passover, when Yahushua knew that his hour was come, that he should depart out of this world unto the Father, having loved his own which were in the world, he loved them unto the end. So we see here at least 3 years. You know, now, I ask you, did Yahushua come in the volume of the book, or is all this just coincidence? You know, if we really look at this and have eyes to see, you can see that, you know, Scripture was even depicting the very time when Yahshua would die. You know, as well as the time when he would enter into power. You know, it very clearly gives us how long his ministry would have been. Even thousands of years before he even came. The word of Elohim is just that, Yahshua. Verses 10 and 11 of Genesis 47, and it says, and Yaakov blessed Pharaoh and went out from before Pharaoh, and Joseph placed his father and his brethren and gave them a possession in the land of Mizraim and the best of the land, in the land of Ramses, as Pharaoh had commanded. Now we get a little more information concerning the land in which we're to dwell. First we were told it was Goshen, right? And now we learn that Goshen is in a part of Egypt called the land of Ramses. So kind of like, Detroit is in the land we call Michigan, right?
Right.
Only this speaks of giving them the best of the land, and in the land of Ramses, as Pharaoh commanded. Now, Ramses means child of the sun. And so what I want you to see here is that this is a spiritual picture, of Israel going into Mizraim, going into double straits, and having to dwell in double straits or double trouble, and it's important that you see this spiritual picture, because those of us who walk in the way of Elohim that the Messiah walked in, we will also find ourselves in double straits. We will find ourselves in a type of Egypt, in a double trouble, in a straight and narrow way that leadeth unto life. Amen. But even in those double straits, we're still given the best of the land to dwell in. Even the land of Ramses. Ramses means child of the sun. Now, when you first look at this and consider it, it seems like idolatry, but it isn't. When we look at Malachi 4:2, it says, but unto you that fear my name shall the Son of Righteousness arise with healing in his wings, and ye may go forth and grow up as the calves of the stall. Now, it's speaking about the Son of Righteousness, and it says S-U-N, and this is because Yahushua was, as the Son, the light of the world. Okay, and we read about this in Yochanan 8:12. It says, then spake Yahushua again unto them, saying, I am the light of the world. He that followeth me shall not walk in darkness, but shall have the light of life. So we see the light of the world that's being spoken of, this spiritual light that is also the light of life. Okay, in Yochanan 12:36, it tells us, while ye have light, believe in the light, that ye may be children of the light. These things spake Yahushua and departed, and he hid himself, and he did hide himself from them. So, and also let's consider 1 Thessalonians 5:5, which says, ye are all the children of the light and the children of the day. We are not of the darkness, not of the night, nor of the darkness. So what I want you to see in all this is that, spiritually speaking, we're supposed to be in Ramses, and we're supposed to be in Goshen. We're supposed to be children of the light, and we're supposed to be dwelling in a place that we're ever drawing near to the Most High El. And that's the spiritual picture behind Ramses and Goshen. It's the place where Israel dwells while they're in double straits, while they're in Mitzrayim. It's the place that they reside, even as children of the light, and ever drawing near to the Most High. I'm going next read to read verses 12 through 17 of Genesis 47, please.
And Joseph nourished his father and his brethren and all his father's household with bread according to their families. And there was no bread in all the land, for the famine was very sore, so that the land of Egypt and all the land of Canaan fainted by reason of the famine. And Joseph gathered up all the money that was found in the land of Egypt and in the land of Canaan for the corn which they bought. And Joseph brought the money into Pharaoh's house. And when the money failed in the land of Egypt and in the land of Canaan, all the Egyptians came unto Joseph and said, give us bread. For why should we die in thy presence? For the money failed. And Joseph said, Give your cattle, and I will give you for your cattle if money fail. And they brought their cattle unto Joseph, and Joseph gave them bread in exchange for horses, and for the flocks, and for the cattle of the herds, and for the asses, and he fed them with bread for all their cattle for that year.
Hallelujah. And so now, what we're about to learn, with these latter passages of 47 is simply how, Yah's people end up coming into double straits, and how those of Mitzrayim, those, double straits are accumulated. So we're told first in verse 14, it says, Joseph gathered up all the money that was found in the land of Mitzrayim, in the land of Canaan, and in the land of Canaan. Mitzrayim speaking to, double straits, Canaan speaking to land of merchants, if you would. Canaanites became synonymous for merchants, back in their day. And spiritually speaking, what we're reading here is not unlike, the situation that we're posed with now today. The powers that be have gathered up all the money, in all actuality. I know some people think they may have some money, but, what they have is colorable money.
Yeah.
Looks like money, acts like money, but it's not really money. It's colorable money. All you have to do to confirm this is look to your Constitution that teaches that only gold and silver shall be lawful money. So what we have are called debt notes. You hear about that. I don't know how many trillion they're up to with the national debt, but yeah, that's what that is. And that's what you're carrying around in your purses and wallets. That's what that represents. That debt and the debtors who ran that debt up, i.e. the one who's holding the note. The debt notes. That's why they call it Federal Reserve notes. What is a note? Well, let's see. Anyone have a car? Nope. House? Nope. Boat? Nope. Yeah, that's what a note is, a debt instrument. So a Federal Reserve note is also a debt instrument. So, and I'm just bringing this out to show that they have gathered up all the money, that was found in the land. Let me have my next reader read verses 18 through 22.
When that year was ended, they came unto him the second year and said unto him, We will not hide it from my Lord, how that our money is spent. My Lord also hath our herds of cattle. There is not aught left in the sight of my Lord, but our bodies and our lands. Wherefore shall we die before thine eyes, both we and our land? Buy us and our land for bread, and we and our land will be servants unto Pharaoh. And give us seed, that we may live and not die, that the land be not desolate. And Joseph bought all the land of Egypt for Pharaoh, for the Egyptians sold every man his field, because the famine prevailed over them. So the land became Pharaoh's. And as for the people, he removed them to cities from one end of the borders of Egypt, even to the other end thereof. Only the land of the priests bought he not, for the priests had a portion assigned to them of Pharaoh, and did eat their portion which Pharaoh gave them. Wherefore they sold not their lands.
Hallelujah. I'm sorry, I forgot to deal with verse 17, which speaks to, and they brought their cattle unto Joseph, and Joseph gave them bread in exchange for horses, and for the flocks, and for the cattle of the herds, and for the behinds. So here it is, they gathered up all the money, and then, they brought up all the cattle, you know, and the horses and so on and so forth. Now, you know, when we bring this up to today's time, you know, this would be the equivalent of, say, you know, like, well, seeing that they rode horses and they used the cattle to pull carts and things, and that's how they got around. You know, we can liken that unto maybe our cars and our vehicles, you know, now today, amen? You know, and, you know, so here it is, we see that the government during Joseph's time had gathered up all the money, and now we see that they gathered up all the cattle, you know, all the horses and the behinds. And so it is now today, you know. Also, all of our cars and our personal possessions, you know, and many of them in all actuality actually belongs to the government, just like we see here. You know, you say, no, I own my car. Do you really? You know, how do you know? You know, well, I have a title. No, you have a certificate of title. You know, now, when you buy a vehicle from the manufacturer, you do receive the actual title, the manufacturer's title. I had one before, you know, but in my ignorance, I took it and went and gave it to the Secretary of State. And then they sent me a certificate of title. So who had the real title? So who owned the car? Absolutely. You know, and that's how they own all our cars. You know, they own all of our horses and behinds. You know, because, and if you don't think you don't think they own it, then, you know, don't pay the rent. You know, what do you mean the rent? You know, that fee you have to pay every year, you know, when your birthday comes. You know? Yeah. Yeah, that shows you, you know, whenever you own something, the owner never has to pay. The owner gets paid. You know, just like with a landlord, you know, the renters don't, the landlord don't pay the renters pay the landlord, right?
Right.
You know, of course. You know, so this is what we see, even now today. Now, when we go to 18 through 22, we see, okay, that as if that wasn't enough, the famine was still strong, and you know, and they say, there is not aught left in the sight of our Adonai but our bodies and our lands. That's all we have left. You know, and so they end up selling that too. Yeah, you know. So they say, buy us and our land for bread, and we and our land will be servants unto Yahweh. And so it is now today. You know, again, you know, this was mimicked, you know, and even was prophetic as to, you know, how it would be. And so it is. It is like this in most places, you know, especially here where we live. You know, yes, the government owns all the land, you know, and believe it or not, they own you too.
Right, yeah.
You know, and I know that that's maybe hard for some to see, but, you know, but it's true nevertheless. Don't pay your income taxes and see who comes into your door. You know, said buy us in our land for bread. You know, some people say, well, you know, my house is paid off. I own my house. No, remember, the owner of a thing never pays.
Right.
The owner gets paid. You know, don't pay your rent. Well, I don't have no rent. I own my house. Sure you do. It's called taxes. You know, the owner never pays. The owner gets paid. So you want to know who owns the house? Really? You know, yes, I know you worked 30 years to pay it off, but you know who owns the house really is the one who gets paid. You know, and you know that's the tax man at the end of the day. You know, whether it's Wayne County, Oakland County, Macomb County, you know, that's the true owner of the property. And again, they give you a guarantee deed this time, you know, to guarantee you use of the property. You know, but if you don't pay the rent, the landlord will come and evict you. You know, so you have to be able to see this, you know, because, you know, scripture was prophetic and was depicting this way back when. And it is still going on now today. Yeah. You know, and this is why, you know, I say that the word is good not only for yesterday, but for today and tomorrow as well. It has an application for what was, what is, and is to come. You know, so here it is. You know, this is the very same predicament that, you know, many of y'all's people find themselves in today. You know? Now, there was one exclusion, and that was found in verse 22. It says, only the land of the priest brought he not. For the priest had a portion assigned them of Pharaoh, and did eat their portion which Pharaoh gave them, wherefore they sold not their lands. Now, mind you, that likewise, now today, even again, this parallel exists. Only the priests are allowed to own land in this country. Only the priests don't have to pay property taxes. They're the only one that doesn't have to pay a landlord. So you see, it's the very same model. It's the very same model. You know, so we see this going on. Let's see what happens next. Verses 23 through 26. My next reader, please.
Then Joseph said unto the people, Behold, I have brought you this day and your land for Pharaoh. Lo, here is seed for you, and ye shall sow the land. And it shall come to pass in the increase that ye shall give the 5th part unto Pharaoh, and 4 parts shall be your own, for seed of the field, and for your food, and for them of your households, and food for your little ones. And they said, Thou hast saved our lives. Let us find grace in the sight of my Lord, and we will be Pharaoh's servants. And Joseph made it a law over the land of Egypt unto this day, that Pharaoh should have the 5th part, except the land of the priests only, which became not Pharaoh's.
Hallelujah. Okay, so here it is. Joseph saying to the people, Behold, I have brought you this day in your land for Pharaoh. Okay, so now the people are owned, their lands are owned, their cattle is owned, and they have no money. But they're alive, you know, and we see in verse 24, it says, And it shall come to pass in the increase that ye shall give a 5th part unto Pharaoh, and 4 parts shall be your own. You know, and this too is still in place today, believe it or not. You know, call it income tax. You know, actually, I think they went up on that 5th though. You know, yeah. I think they kind of went up on the 5th. You know, they're getting a little greedy nowadays. You know, but that would have amounted to 20%. You know, yeah, I'm pretty sure they're beyond 20% for many households. You know, and so here it is. See, but the only difference betwixt then and now is that they knew what had happened. They understood what had happened. But those of us that are slaves now today, those of us that are victims to this very same model, are in ignorance and don't even know or understand that we're actually in this predicament. You know, we've been hoodwinked, bamboozled, led astray. You know, the wool has been pulled over our eyes. You know, and here it is. You know, we just walk happily along, thinking that we're free and we own everything that's in our possession. When in all actuality, we own nothing. You know, and we are, in fact, the slaves. You know.
Not to cut you off, but I noticed that you said that I have bought you this day. In other words, I own you.
Exactly, that's what I'm saying. You know, and that's the way it is now today. Really, you know, in many circumstances, you know, on the most part, the people are owned, you know, by the government. You know, just as we see this here, and this is why they have to pay income tax. You know, because of that ownership. You know, but there is an exception. Verse 26, And Joseph made it a law over the land of the Mizraim unto this day, that Pharaoh should have the 5th part, except the land of the priest only, which became not Pharaoh's. Think there's some benefits to being, you know, with Elohim?
Yeah.
Absolutely. You know, but we see the same model, and that's, you know, that's what's just, you know, really just, I'm really trying to drive home, is that this same model of government is still being used now today. This thousands of years later. yet this same model holds true. Let me have my next reader read verses 27 through 31, please.
And Israel dealt in the land of Mizraim, in the country of Goshen, and they had possessions therein, and grew and multiplied exceedingly. And Jacob lived in the land of Mizraim 17 years, so the whole age of Jacob was 147 years. And the time drew nigh that Israel must die. And he called his son Joseph, and said unto him, If now I have found grace in thy sight, put, I pray thee, thy hand under my thigh, and deal kindly and truly with me. Bury me not, I pray thee, in Mizraim. I will lie with my fathers, and thou shalt carry me out of Mizraim, and bury me in their burying place. And he said, I will do as thou hast said. And he said, Swear unto me. And he swore unto him. And Israel bowed himself upon the bed's head.
Hallelujah. You know, and even though we as Israel wrestle with the evil of our carnal nature and with the goodness of the word of Elohim, that is Yahushua HaMashiach, while yet living in these double straits, you know, these times that we live in, you know, when we're trying to walk in the straight and narrow, and, you know, and it can get tough, it can become pressing, even like those double straits that's being illustrated in the story, you know that we're given the best that Mizraim have to offer within these double straits. Even Goshen, even within the land of Ramses, you know, i.e. the child of the sun, which is reserved for us. This is what's reserved for us, you know, children of the sun. That is the children of the light of Elohim, wherein we dwell, ever drawing near to Elohim from Goshen. You know, and we're to take refuge in knowing that even though we as Israel may die doing so, we too have been promised to be put to rest in the land promised to us by the word of Elohim, even New Jerusalem. You know, so be encouraged. That's all I have for you today. Pray for the blessing.